The sound of an engine, that low, steady hum, it used to mean he was home. My husband, my best friend, the love of my life. That car, his BMW, wasn't just a machine. It was his pride. It was our story. Every dent, every mile, every speck of dust carried a memory. Road trips to the mountains, quiet drives after dinner, even the way he tapped the steering wheel when our favorite song came on the radio. When cancer took him from me, I thought I had lost everything. But that car? It stayed. It smelled like his cologne. His sunglasses were still tucked in the visor. The seat held the shape of his shoulders. It was the one piece of him I could hold on to when the nights felt endless and empty. So imagine this. I walk outside one morning and the driveway is bare. Gone. The only thing I had left of him vanished. I turned to my son, desperate, hoping for some explanation. And do you know what he said? He looked me straight in the eyes and told me, "Stop whining, Mom, it's already sold. I needed the money for my trip." My heart shattered in that moment. But what neither of us knew was that this story was only just beginning. Because when I called the pawn shop to find out where the car had gone, the man on the phone whispered words that still haunt me. "Ma'am, you need to come here. We found something inside." The first thing people noticed about my husband wasn't his smile, though he had one of those rare, genuine smiles that could light up a whole room. It wasn't his deep laugh either, the kind that carried across the yard during summer barbecues and made even strangers turn their heads. No, the first thing most people noticed about him was his car. That BMW, sleek, dark, polished to perfection. He loved it like it was part of him. To outsiders, maybe it was just a car, just 4 wheels and an engine. But to him, and to me, it was a living, breathing symbol of who we were, of what we had built together. I still remember the day he drove it home for the very first time. He pulled into the driveway, honked twice like a teenager with a new toy, and jumped out before the engine even cooled. His eyes sparkled, and he looked at me like a boy who had just caught his first fish. "Come on, honey," he said, practically bouncing on his feet. "Get in. I want you to feel it. This isn't just any car. This is our car." And so I did. I slid into the passenger seat, the leather cool against my skin, the scent of something sharp and new filling the air. He turned the key and the engine roared to life with a deep growl that sent a shiver through both of us. He looked at me, grinned like a kid, and said, "Listen to her. Doesn't she sound alive?" From that day on, the BMW became the backdrop of our lives. We took it everywhere. Road trips up the coast, where we rolled down the windows and let the ocean air whip through our hair. Quiet Sunday drives, where the world slowed down and we just held hands over the console. Late-night grocery runs, laughing about how he always forgot the milk, no matter how many times I reminded him. And the memories. Oh, the memories we made in that car. There was the anniversary trip. 15 years married, and he surprised me with a weekend away. He wouldn't even tell me where we were going. He just packed a bag, opened the passenger door with a little bow, and said, "Trust me." I remember the hum of the tires on the road, the way he kept sneaking glances at me like he was seeing me for the first time all over again. We ended up at a tiny mountain cabin, tucked away from the world. The car was parked right outside, its headlights glowing in the misty night, like it was watching over us. There was the Christmas Eve drive, too. We'd just finished dinner with the family, and he insisted we take the long way home. Snowflakes were falling thick, dusting the windshield, and he leaned over, kissed my cheek, and said, "This is my favorite kind of night. Just us, just the road, just this car." And of course, the night our daughter was born. He drove me to the hospital in that BMW, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, panic written all over his face as he kept muttering, "Hang on, honey. Just a little longer. Don't you dare have this baby in the car." I was screaming, he was sweating, and the car, well, it flew. To this day, I swear it moved faster than it ever had before, like even it knew how important that night was. That BMW wasn't just metal and glass and rubber. It was memories. It was milestones. It was love written into leather seats and etched into a dashboard. After he passed, after cancer stole him from me far too soon, the house felt empty. His clothes still hung in the closet, his chair still sat by the fireplace, but none of it felt alive anymore. Except for the car. Every morning I would walk outside and there it would be, sitting in the driveway, gleaming in the sun, almost like it was waiting for him to come back. Some nights when I couldn't sleep, I would slip inside. I'd close my eyes, breathe deep, and for just a moment, I could almost feel him there beside me. His cologne still lingered faintly in the fabric. His fingerprints still smudged the radio dial. The driver's seat still held the faint curve of his shoulders. That car was him. It was us. And my son? He never understood. He never saw the memories woven into every mile. To him, it was just a car. Something shiny, something that cost too much to maintain. Something he thought I should have gotten rid of years ago. I remember once, maybe a year after the funeral, I was sitting in the car, holding onto the steering wheel like it was a lifeline. My son walked by, saw me through the window, and frowned. "Mom," he said, rolling his eyes, "you're acting like it's some shrine. It's just a car." Just a car. Those words sliced through me like a knife. How could I explain to him what it really meant? How could I tell him that when I sat there in that driver's seat, I could still hear his father's laugh? That when the engine roared to life, I could still feel his energy filling the space around me? I tried. Lord knows I tried. But he never wanted to hear it. To him, it was just metal. And in his eyes, metal could be sold, traded, turned into cash. Maybe I should have known then. Maybe I should have seen the way he looked at it. Not with love, not with nostalgia, but with calculation. Like he was waiting for the right moment. But I pushed that thought away. I told myself I was being paranoid, that he would never do something so heartless. After all, it wasn't just a car. It was all I had left. And he had to know that, didn't he? Still, the seeds of doubt were planted. Every time I caught him staring at it, every time he mentioned how much money it might fetch if I sold it, every time he sighed and muttered, "You could really use the cash, Mom," I felt that unease grow. But I clung to that BMW. I held onto it like it was the last thread tying me to the man I loved, the life we had built, the memories that still burned bright even in his absence. I told myself, as long as that car sat in the driveway, a part of him was still here. A part of him was still mine. And I never let myself imagine, not even for a second, what it would feel like to lose it. Because if I had, maybe I would have been prepared for the day when it vanished. Maybe I would have been ready for the betrayal. Maybe the pain wouldn't have cut so deep. But I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready at all. And deep down, I think my son knew it, knew. That morning started like any other. The sun was peeking through the curtains, soft and golden, casting little streaks across my bedroom floor. I remember stretching, breathing in deeply, telling myself it was going to be a good day. I didn't know yet. I didn't know that everything I had been holding on to was already gone. I slipped into my robe, padded down the hallway, and opened the front door to let the morning air rush in. The world was quiet, still waking up. A bird perched on the telephone line, singing a tune that sounded far too cheerful for what was about to come. And then, I looked toward the driveway. At first, I didn't process it. My eyes skimmed over the space where the BMW should have been, but my brain refused to connect the dots. The driveway was bare, empty, cold concrete staring back at me. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, even stepped outside barefoot onto the rough pavement, thinking maybe I'd parked it differently. Maybe I'd moved it last night and forgotten. But no, it was gone. My chest tightened. My breath caught. A strange buzzing filled my ears, the kind that comes when panic starts to rise. My hands shook as I clutched my robe tighter and whispered to myself, "No, no, no, no. This can't be happening." I walked in circles, scanning the street as if the car might magically reappear. Maybe I'd lent it to someone? Maybe it was in the shop. No, I never let it out of my sight. I never let anyone touch it. My neighbors began to notice me pacing, staring, running my hands through my hair. Mrs. Henderson from across the street tilted her head, holding her morning coffee, and called out, "Everything all right, dear?" I wanted to scream, "No, everything is not all right." But all I could do was force a shaky smile and wave. My lips trembled so much I don't know how I managed it. Inside, my heart was collapsing. I tore back inside the house, grabbing my phone, dialing numbers, fumbling so badly I dropped it twice. I called the police, but even as I spoke the words, "My car is missing," a sick feeling gnawed at my stomach. This wasn't theft. It didn't feel like theft. It felt closer, personal. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, and there was my son, my only child. His hair still messy from sleep, his phone in one hand, scrolling casually like the world was normal. "Mom, what's with all the noise?" he asked, yawning. I stammered, "The car, the BMW. It's gone. Did you see anything? Did you hear anything last night?" And then, he said it. Words that will never leave me. He rolled his eyes, shrugged like it was nothing, and muttered, "Stop whining, Mom. I sold it. I needed the money for my trip." Just like that. No hesitation. No remorse. No understanding of what he had just ripped out of me. For a moment, the world stopped. I swear even the clock on the wall held its breath. His voice echoed in my head. I sold it. I needed the money for my trip. I felt the blood drain from my face. My knees went weak. My throat closed up so tight I could barely breathe. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, terrified I might collapse right there on the floor. My son, my flesh and blood, had sold the only piece of his father I had left. I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. My lips parted, my voice cracked, and all I managed was a whisper. You did what?" He looked at me then, not with guilt, not with shame, but with irritation. As if I were the problem. As if my grief, my attachment, my love for that car was just some silly inconvenience to him. "I needed the cash," he repeated. "It was just sitting there, Mom, gathering dust. You don't even drive it. You're obsessed. It's weird. I needed it more than you did." Those words burned. I needed it more than you did. How could he say that? How could he reduce years of love, memories, laughter, milestones, reduce his own father's memory to a pile of dollar bills he could throw at a vacation? Anger surged through me like fire, but beneath it was heartbreak so deep it felt like drowning. Tears stung my eyes, hot and relentless. My hands shook, my voice cracked, and I wanted to scream at him. Scream until the walls shook, until the neighbors heard, until the whole world knew what he had done. But nothing came out. Nothing but silence and the sound of my own breaking heart. I stumbled back, clutching my chest, staring at him like he was a stranger. Because in that moment, that's what he was. Not my son. Not the little boy who used to sit in the back seat of that BMW, kicking his legs happily as his father sang along to the radio. Not the teenager who once begged his dad to let him drive it around the block. No, that boy was gone. And in his place stood someone I didn't recognize. Someone who looked at me not with love, but with contempt. I thought of my husband then, of the way he used to polish the car on weekends, whistling under his breath, pride shining in his eyes. Of the way he'd wink at me before revving the engine just to hear it growl. Of the way he said once, "If anything ever happens to me, promise me you'll keep her safe. She's not just a car, she's part of us." And now she was gone. Because of him. Because of our son. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. Neighbors kept glancing out their windows as my voice finally returned. I shouted, my words trembling with rage and grief. How could you? That was your father's. That was all I had left of him. He just shrugged again, muttering, Dad's gone, Mom. It's just a car. You need to let go. Just a car. Those 3 words crushed me. I turned away, unable to look at him anymore because if I did, I didn't know what I might say or do. I pressed my hand against the wall, trying to steady myself. Tears streaming down my cheeks. My chest ached like it might split open. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't comprehend it. The one person I thought I could always trust had taken the one thing I couldn't live without. And as I stood there, trembling, broken, a thought crept into my mind. A thought that chilled me to the bone. If he could do this, if he could sell his father's car without a shred of guilt, what else was he capable of? The BMW was gone. My son had betrayed me, and my world would never be the same again. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. I needed to believe it was a mistake. After all, this was my son. The boy I raised, the boy I carried, the boy his father once held in his arms with tears of pride. Surely, I thought, he couldn't mean it the way it sounded. Surely he hadn't looked me in the eyes and deliberately ripped away the last piece of his father. So I confronted him. My hands were trembling, but I stood tall, my voice sharp and unsteady as I said, Tell me you're joking. Please, tell me this isn't real. He sighed, running his hand through his hair, like I was the one being unreasonable. Mom, he groaned, why are you making such a big deal out of this? I told you I sold the car. End of story. Can you just drop it already? Drop it. As though my husband's memory was a piece of trash I was clutching too tightly. As though my grief was nothing but a nuisance to him. I shook my head, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. That car was your father's. It was all I had left of him, and you... My voice cracked. I couldn't finish. He cut me off with a bitter laugh. A laugh that didn't sound like the little boy I raised, but like a stranger who had grown cold and careless. Mom, listen to yourself, he sneered. It's just a car. Dad's been gone for years. Why are you still obsessing over it? It's pathetic. Pathetic. That word stung more than anything else. He wasn't just dismissing my pain. He was mocking it. He was mocking the love I still carried for the man who gave us both everything. Tears welled in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I swallowed hard, steadied my voice, and whispered, How could you? How could you take something that wasn't yours to take? That car was sacred. He smirked, shrugging his shoulders like he had all the answers. Sacred? You don't even drive it. You just sit in it like some shrine. Do you know how crazy that looks? Do you know how embarrassing it is to see my mom treating a car like a husband replacement? The cruelty of his words sliced through me. I staggered back, pressing my hand to my chest as if to hold my heart together. I searched his face, desperate to find a trace of the boy who once adored his father, the boy who once kissed me on the cheek and promised he'd always take care of me. But there was nothing. Nothing but coldness. You think I'm crazy? I whispered. He folded his arms, eyes narrowing. I think you need to let go. Dad's gone. The car was just rotting in the driveway. I needed money for my trip and now I have it. You should be thanking me, not acting like I stole your soul or something. Thanking him. The audacity, the arrogance. I felt something shift inside me in that moment. The heartbreak was still there, heavy and suffocating, but beneath it, a fire was starting to burn. My son didn't see me as a mother to be respected. He didn't see me as a woman in pain. He saw me as weak, disposable, a fragile obstacle standing in the way of what he wanted. He leaned against the counter, smirking, tapping his phone like he was already planning his vacation. You'll get over it, Mom. You always do. Those words were the breaking point. I saw the truth then, clearer than ever before. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't ignorance. This was a choice. A selfish, deliberate choice. My son had looked at me, seen my vulnerability, and decided it didn't matter. He had decided I didn't matter. And in that moment, as the tears finally slid down my cheeks, I realized something else. Karma was watching. Because betrayal like his never goes unpunished. Cruelty like his always circles back. I didn't know when. I didn't know how. But I knew deep in my bones that one day, my son would regret this. One day he would understand the weight of what he had done. One day the pain he had caused me would find its way back to him. I looked at him through the blur of my tears, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. You think you've won, don't you? You think you've taken what you wanted, and that's the end of it. But you're wrong. You've started something you can't control. He scoffed, rolling his eyes again, but I didn't flinch this time. I held his gaze, letting him see the fire that had replaced my grief. You've forgotten something important, I continued, my voice low, steady, almost dangerous. You may think I'm weak. You may think I'm disposable, but I am still your mother. And you will learn sooner than you think that actions have consequences. He smirked, shook his head, and walked away, muttering something under his breath. But I didn't care. Let him laugh. Let him mock. Because deep down, I knew. The BMW wasn't gone forever. The truth had a way of surfacing. Secrets had a way of clawing their way into the light. And when that happened, my son would wish he had never underestimated me. After the confrontation with my son, the house fell into a silence so heavy it was suffocating. I could still hear his mocking laughter echoing in my ears. Every corner of the home felt colder, emptier. I walked from room to room, searching for something, anything that could comfort me. But all I found was the cruel reminder that my husband's car, the last piece of him, was gone. But grief has a way of turning into determination. Somewhere between the tears and the shaking of my hands, a thought struck me. What if it wasn't too late? I grabbed my phone, sat down at the kitchen table, and forced myself to focus. If my son sold the BMW, then someone had bought it. And if someone bought it, maybe I could get it back. I started with the local pawn shops. My voice cracked as I dialed the first number. Hello, this is Henderson's Pawn and Trade. How can I help you? I swallowed hard. Yes, hi. This may sound strange, but I'm looking for a black BMW. My son may have sold it recently. It belonged to my late husband. It's very important to me. The man on the other end was polite but firm. Sorry, ma'am. We don't take cars here, only smaller valuables. Try down on 5th Street. Click. I tried another, and another. Each call ended the same way. No record, no car, no hope. With every rejection, I felt my resolve weakening. My hands trembled so badly I could barely dial. My throat tightened each time I had to explain. Each time I had to admit aloud that my son had sold his father's car for a trip. By the 5th call, I almost gave up. Almost. But then I thought of my husband. I thought of his voice in my ear the day he bought that car, whispering, "Promise me you'll take care of her." And I knew I couldn't stop. Not yet. So I dialed again. Golden Star Pawn, this is Richard speaking. I took a breath. Hi, my name is, well, it doesn't matter. I'm calling because I think my son may have sold you a car. A BMW black. Older model, but well kept. It belonged to my husband. He passed away and there was a pause on the line. A long, heavy pause that made my heart pound in my ears. Finally, the man cleared his throat. Ma'am, what did you say your husband's name was? I froze. My stomach flipped. His name was Michael, I whispered. Michael Carter. Another silence. And then the man said quietly, Yes, ma'am. We have the car. It came through just yesterday. I nearly dropped the phone. My whole body went weak, and I had to grip the edge of the table to steady myself. Relief and fear crashed over me all at once. You have it? I stammered. Yes, ma'am, he said slowly, but there's something else. His tone shifted, lowering, as though he didn't want anyone else in the room to hear. You'll need to come in. We found something inside the car. My breath hitched. Something? What do you mean? I can't explain over the phone, he said firmly. Just come down here, you'll understand when you see it. My heart thudded so loudly, I thought he might hear it through the receiver. My palms were slick with sweat. I wanted to demand answers, to scream, to beg him to tell me right then and there what he had found. But something in his voice told me this wasn't news to be delivered casually. Whatever it wasn't small. I swallowed hard, my voice barely more than a whisper. I'll be there. Please, don't let anyone else touch it. We won't, ma'am. It'll be waiting for you. When I hung up the phone, the house felt different. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was thick with questions. What had they found? Why couldn't he tell me over the phone? Why did his voice carry that weight, that hesitation, that urgency? I sat at the table for a long moment, staring at nothing, my mind spinning with possibilities. A forgotten photograph? Papers tucked into the glove compartment? Maybe something my husband had hidden away. Something meant for me? But then darker thoughts crept in. What if it was something else? Something I wasn't supposed to find? What if my son had known? What if he had sold the car not just for money, but to bury secrets? I shook the thought from my head, but it lingered, a shadow at the edge of my mind. I glanced toward my son's room. He was inside, music playing faintly through the door, oblivious to the storm raging just feet away. He didn't care. He thought it was over, that he had taken what he wanted and left me with nothing. But he was wrong. The car wasn't gone forever. It was waiting. And so was the truth. As I grabbed my coat and keys, my heart raced faster than it had in years. My hands shook as I reached for the doorknob. The weight of my husband's memory pressed on me, urging me forward, whispering that what lay ahead was bigger than anything I could imagine. The pawnshop owner's words echoed in my head over and over. Ma'am, you need to come here. We found something inside. I didn't know it yet, but that call, that one phone call was about to unravel everything. And nothing in my life would ever be the same again. The drive to the pawn shop felt like the longest of my life. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white, and yet they still trembled. My heart hammered against my chest with every passing mile, every stoplight, every glance at the road ahead. I couldn't stop hearing the man's voice in my head. Ma'am, you need to come here. We found something inside. What could it be? What had my husband left behind? A part of me was terrified. What if it was something dark? What if it revealed things I wasn't ready to know about him? But another part of me, the stronger part, clung to hope. Hope that whatever was waiting for me would be a gift. One last message, one last touch of his hand reaching out from the past to remind me that I wasn't alone. When I finally pulled into the lot, my stomach flipped. The pawn shop wasn't glamorous, just a squat building with flickering neon letters in the window, but to me it felt like the gates of something life-changing. I sat in the car for a long moment, my palms sweating, before finally forcing myself to step inside. The bell over the door jingled, sharp and jarring against the silence in my chest. Behind the counter stood the man I'd spoken to. Richard, he introduced himself. His eyes softened when he saw me, and he gave a small nod, almost like he'd been waiting just for me. "You're Mrs. Carter," he said gently. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. He motioned for me to follow him, leading me past glass cases filled with watches, jewelry, cameras, all the forgotten treasures of other people's lives. But none of it mattered. My eyes were locked on the back room, the place where I knew my husband's car was waiting. And then, there it was, the BMW. Even here, under the dull fluorescent lights, she gleamed. My knees went weak just seeing her again, like I had stumbled across a long-lost friend. I pressed a hand to my mouth as tears welled in my eyes. "She's still yours, ma'am," Richard said softly. "We haven't processed her yet, but before we do, we need to talk." He led me closer, and that's when I saw it. An envelope, worn but sealed, resting on the hood of the car. "We found this in the glove compartment," he explained. "It was tucked so far back I almost missed it, but when I pulled it out and saw the name..." He paused, looking at me with something like reverence. "It has your name on it." My breath caught. My name. With trembling hands, I reached for the envelope. The paper was yellowed at the edges, the handwriting instantly recognizable. My husband's. I traced the letters with my fingers, as though touching his writing would somehow bring him back. "Go ahead," Richard said quietly. "It belongs to you." I broke the seal, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. Inside was a letter, folded neatly, carefully, as though he had known exactly when and how it would reach me. I unfolded it slowly, my hands shaking, my eyes already blurring with tears. And then, I read, "My love, if you are reading this, then I am no longer with you. I know how much this car means to you because it meant the same to me, but it is more than a memory. I've left something here for you. Something I hope will protect you when I no longer can. Inside the lining of the trunk, hidden beneath the carpet, you'll find documents. They are the legacy of everything I built, everything I worked for, and everything I couldn't bear to leave in anyone else's hands. Our son is not ready. He may never be. But you are the heart of this family. Trust yourself. Do with it what you think is right. And remember, I love you, always." The words blurred as tears poured down my cheeks. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the paper. My husband's voice seemed to fill the room, each sentence wrapping around me like a warm embrace. Richard cleared his throat gently. "Do you want me to help you open the trunk?" I nodded, unable to speak. We walked to the back of the car, and with a heavy click, the trunk lifted. Richard pulled back the carpeted lining, pried open a small compartment, and there it was, a leather folder thick with documents. My breath hitched as I opened it. Inside were bank statements, property deeds, and investment papers, accounts I never knew existed. My husband had left behind a fortune. Quietly, carefully, he had built something far greater than I'd ever imagined, and he had hidden it here, inside the car we both loved. I covered my mouth with my hand, the tears flowing freely now. He had trusted me. Not our son, not anyone else. Me. In that moment, the weight of betrayal from my son collided with the strength of my husband's love. My son thought he had taken everything from me. He thought he had stripped me of my last memory, my last tether to the man I loved. But he was wrong, because hidden inside that BMW was not just memory. It was power. Richard placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Looks like your husband wanted to make sure you'd be taken care of. This changes everything." And he was right. I folded the documents back into the folder, clutching them tightly against my chest. My husband had spoken to me from beyond the grave, reminding me that I was not weak, reminding me that I was the keeper of his legacy, not my son. As I stood there in that pawn shop, surrounded by dusty shelves and flickering lights, something inside me shifted. The grief was still there, yes, but it was no longer paralyzing. It had transformed into resolve, into fire. Because now I had proof of my husband's faith in me, proof of his love, proof that our son's betrayal would not be the final word. I could already imagine my son's face when he realized what he had lost, what he had thrown away with his arrogance. He thought I was weak, disposable, pathetic. But he had no idea that in trying to take everything from me, He had only delivered me to the truth. I wiped my tears, squared my shoulders, and whispered into the stillness of the room, "Thank you, Michael. I'll make this right." And as I walked out of that pawn shop, folder in hand, heart pounding with new strength, I knew one thing for certain. The balance of power had shifted. The car had carried my past, but what it revealed was my future. And my son was about to learn the hardest lesson of his life, that betrayal always comes back, and that the woman he thought was weak was far stronger than he could ever imagine. When I look back now, I see two things clearly: betrayal and strength. My son thought he could strip me of everything that mattered. He thought I was fragile, clinging to an old car like it was my lifeline. He saw me as weak, as a burden, as someone who could be dismissed and discarded. But he was wrong, because strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers in the quiet resolve of a woman who refuses to be broken. Sometimes it waits, patient and steady, until the truth comes to light. When he realized what the car had held all along, the documents, the legacy, the fortune his father entrusted to me, his face told me everything. Shock, rage, and finally fear. The son who mocked me, who sold his father's memory for a vacation, had to face the reality that his greed had cost him everything. I didn't need to punish him. Life did that for me. The greatest revenge was not anger, not screaming, not even hate. The greatest revenge was standing tall, unshaken, while he crumbled under the weight of his own choices. And so I keep the BMW not just as a memory, but as a symbol. My husband's car was never just a car. It was proof that love lives on, and that betrayal always finds its way back.